There is a terrible war for your soul and your spirit where materialists are trying to scare you to death, because when you're afraid, then beings who are fallen from the hierarchy are able to eat that fear. That's what keeps them alive. So today I want to describe that we are not in World War III because of Ukraine and Putin. We are already in World War III, but it's a pharmaceutical World War III. And so to skirt around the fear of what's going on in Ukraine, because perfectly intelligent people I know keep saying to me that we're about to have nuclear holocaust. No, we are not.
But World War III doesn't necessarily involve that weapon. It can exist in different ways. So yeah, World War III could be.
A pharmaceutical World War III has already happened.
I mean, we're already in the middle of World War III right now. It's an information war, pharmaceutical war, psychological war. They're using every weapon they can against humanity.
All the key players are all devotees of the World Economic Forum. So who declared war on who? And why did they blow up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline? There are 3 pipelines through Ukraine. Zelensky has now turned them all off. He is responsible. If he would turn his 3 pipelines back on, he could stop the disaster going on. I think when he took control, they were already down to 80%. So what happens? The European Union convinces the corrupt politicians in Ukraine. They are all members of the Party of the Regions, which is the original Nazis. At the same time that Hitler's Nazis were going on, these fascist Nazis were going on in Ukraine. They still go on to today. And Biden himself is a fascist Nazi. And when you look at Antifa, they use the same flag. They use the same slogan. They use the same strategies. So what we have going on here is a complete fraud. We've given now $100 billion to Zelensky and his fraudulent cronies. What I'm going to talk about is this. Don't be afraid of the narrative. The narrative is not true. Okay? The narrative is completely nonsense. Think of this. They took a popular vote. Yes, then the Russians came in, made sure that the new government was established, and then they left. And now they have, just like Belarus, they have a union, an agreement with Russia. Well, those were all Russian lands before USSR lands. And so, of course, he wants them all back. And I already predicted that not only Donbass would vote again, which they just recently did, to reaffirm the fact that Zelensky is a murderer. He's a war criminal who's been given by America $100 billion. And what is he doing? Bombing his own people. So every time we give them weapons, no matter what, except for a few, when we gave them a few at the very beginning, he used it to bomb Russia. He invaded Russia. He sent in British commandos to blow up the electric plant that ran the pipelines. He also blew up some other things and then used the only missiles he had to actually hit infrastructure in Russia before Russia ever entered into Ukraine. So who started this war? And not only that, who's paying for the war? And not only that, why have the bloody Brits come out with their top brass mobilizing the British army? Has anyone noticed that Britain declared war upon Putin?
I tell you what I've noticed is that when you look at the possible sabotage of this pipeline, you see the U.S. Navy in those waters right around the time that they think that the explosives were planted on the pipelines. The U.S. Navy, well, as our audience will know, that's run by Serco. There's so many contracts that Serco has with the Navy, including our intelligence, which is also controlled by Crown Agent Senior Executive Services. And on top of that, you have Serco, whose CEO is Rupert Soames, the great-grandson or grandson of Winston Churchill, as I recall. Nicholas Soames is his father. Who is that? That, if you track it back from the U.S. Navy being there at those pipelines all the way back through Serco, through Soames, it's the British Pilgrim Society. So King Charles, he's in charge of these people. If anybody is to blame for the blow up there, in my opinion, it would be this pedo king.
We said the second he gets the crown on his head, hang on, folks, it's going to get crazy.
They need to force him to abdicate or do something, because Charles is behind this. Walk it back. Look at the facts.
And Charles is the leader of the Pilgrim Society, basically. And then the groups that are all interlocked through interlocked relationships of directors to all these companies that own all the stock markets and all these things we have revealed, Who's that go back to? King Charles now.
And then you look at the rhetoric of Victoria Nuland. We all know about her and her relationship with Ukraine and what she's done, but she is senior executive service. We've shown you that these are crown agents that work for the pilgrims, i.e. Charles, on the ground in America. So when you see that and you know your enemy, you can understand all these different machinations that's going on.
Zelensky has been paid off a long time ago. And when he went to Belarus, when the war first started, what did he do? He stayed there like for a few seconds for a peace.
But wait, when you
and
say
then left.
the other side, define what is the other side. There's so many sides here.
Well, the fake war with Putin. That's how he makes money. That's how Bashar al-Assad made, he made 3 times as much in Syria as when the pipelines flowed, when there was a war, because of the donations. Zelensky knows that because he's an idiot. He watches the news. And so he basically is using us. And what does he get out of it? All of it. All the money we give him, what has it done for his offensives? Nothing. He still uses cell phones, which can be targeted by the Russians, and they've blown up every time that they get on the cell phone because that's how they conduct their top secret military maneuvers. This is the biggest joke I've ever seen in history. So if you believe that fear that there's going to be World War III, Putin is a member of the World Economic Forum. Just like the new head of Italy, just like the new head of Britain, just like we'll have Biden out any minute. And that would mean to me that Trump must have sold out to the World Economic Forum. Because why? Everybody's World Economic Forum. And what do they say? 2023, next year, the reset happens. Well, it's going to fail because if the cryptocurrency doesn't work, this fake war is a distraction from what, folks? Why did the bloody British declare war on Putin when they know that's insanity? If one single nuclear bomb goes off, the world is gone.
There's another way to look at this. Now, folks, the Pilgrim Society, when you look under the hood, what you really see is fascism. You see a collection of transnational corporations. They have these interlocked directorships. That's how they communicate between their corporations. And they have been fueled by fake money. And this has been going on for a couple of centuries. They have worked themselves into a corner, though, with this scheme that they've got going, and it's going to be hell to pay. So they need to exit in a way that they can wipe away their debt. And the way they would do that legally through their documents is through force majeure. And you've seen these in your contracts. If there's an act of nature, of God, or war, then all the contracts are null and void. Well, they need Russia to declare war badly because they've got to use the exit of force majeure. Sorry, we can't rebuild any of these manufacturers. We can't do this. Our pensions have gone belly up, everything because Putin declared war. And when I look at Putin, and I know that there's other things that I don't see, but at one level, I see this Russian bear deciding it's going to hibernate for the winter and be patient and just let the Europeans and the Germans kill their populations. That's what they're doing. And they'll sit back and wait. And when that enemy is really weak, they will go in and just take them all out.
Nord Stream 1 was a secret deal between Putin and Angela Merkel. This came out when Trump went over and he said, hey, European Union, Angela Merkel is ripping you off. Nord Stream 1 is closed. Does Putin really want that to be off? He doesn't care. The day after the European Union put sanctions on him, he sold the entire amount of oil that he sells to Europe each year, which is about $80 billion. He sold $90 billion to China. China came in, swept right in and said, oh, you're not going to give Europe oil? I'll take it. And now they're building incredibly complicated infrastructure pipelines into China to bring in the oil. Putin doesn't need to sell oil to Europe.
Well, you don't have to keep a customer that's being ornery, and the West is being ornery, and he can find another market, then he's doing it. But King Charlie, he wants a military solution. He has said as much in his speeches. And he called up his good old buddy, Sir Rupert Soames, and said, look, we got to take them out. I want these pipelines taken out. And so Soames, who's the CEO of Serco, and who has tons of contracts with the U.S. Navy, he trickled that message on down to the U.S. Navy commanders and said they have to go out. I don't know if the Navy did it or the CIA, but I have heard it suggested that maybe the party we need to send in to resolve all this is the FBI. That's a joke.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Because in the end, they all operate under Five Eyes control, which is the British Pilgrim Society.
Yeah, it was probably kinetic.
Kinetic, you think?
Kinetic.
Yeah, but you see, the command to do something like this came from the very top.
Absolutely.
It didn't come from Rupert Soames. It didn't come from somebody in the U.S. Navy. It came from Charlie Boy.
I've already insinuated this, and now I'll just blatantly say it. When the Brits and the Americans did the inspection on those pipelines and found them to be inadequate, that's when they placed the bombs.
Okay.
And then when Charles said, push the button,
Yeah.
because Charles has to be ready for war. Now Charles is totally in control. He's ready for war.
And killing off the German population this winter to freeze to death and then to starve, that suits his depopulation agenda.
I'm expecting that when the bottom line comes, that the one pipeline leading from Europe to Britain, where they get 4% of their oil from Russia through these pipelines, that it was blown up too, so that they can say there was a war provocation.
Look, remove King Charles. He is a complete terrorist of the world.
Yeah, because he's as stupid as Biden. He admits what he's doing. He said
Just
he's going to...
dangle a naked boy in front of him and he'll be off on his way.
He's already said climate control is going to be a military operation. His desire to have fake carbon credits be the new currency, because that's what it
He
is.
wants it to be the new Marshall Plan.
Now he wants to do it with war. But when that war is declared, that is going to be the moment not to set off nuclear bombs, but to bring in the new currency. And once you soften everybody up, then they'll go for it, because they'll say, oh my God, everybody in Europe's going to die if we don't do this. And that's their plan. It's going to happen in the spring. And then they think they can close it up by the fall. It won't. They won't have the technology to do it. They won't have the support to do it. And they have no understanding of what a human being is. So basically, human nature will stop them.